power.
Are we ready? We good to go? All right. Then I will call this meeting to order in place of Chair Ledoux, who's out tonight, at 6 p.m. Madam Clerk, can you please call roll?
Commissioner Long?
Here.
Commissioner Madrid? Commissioner Thomas?
Here.
Vice Chair Diedrich?
Here.
And Chair Ledoux is absent.
Thank you. Commissioner Thomas, can I get you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
So we all stand, right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
How's that feel after the Olympics?
Thank you, sir. All right. No presentations tonight, so moving on to the agenda. Are there any modifications to the agenda?
There are none.
Great, thank you. Can I get an approval of the agenda from my fellow commissioners, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on to item number 6, public comments. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak tonight on any items not on the agenda?
There are none.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience that wanted to speak on a non-agenda item that didn't turn their slip in? All right, hearing none, we'll move forward. Moving on to item 7, approval of the minutes. Fellow commissioners, can I get an approval of the August 14th, 2024 minutes, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. No items on the consent calendar tonight. Moving on to item number 9.1. Deputy Community Development Director, can you please introduce this item?
Thank you, Vice Chair. The item is going to be presented today by our Principal Planner, Ryan Fowler.
Yes, good evening, Commission, members of the public. Ryan Fowler here to present the Cato Menifee Industrial Warehouse Project. It includes 2 entitlement applications, a tentative parcel map, PLN 22-0041, and plot plan PLN 21-0370. The project is located south of Ethonac Road, east of Wheat Street and west of Byers Street, essentially up right near the northwest corner of the city. The project has a general plan land use designation of Economic Development Corridor Northern Gateway. It has the same zoning, and it's fully surrounded by that same general plan land use designation and zoning. As I mentioned, there's 2 entitlement applications. The first, the tentative parcel map. On the previous slide, you see there was 8 parcels that the project site is made up of 8 parcels, and so this tentative parcel map would consolidate those into one lot and just clean up, so that way the parcel lines do not crisscross through the building area. The whole project site is 40 gross acres and approximately 37 net acres. And then the plot plan proposes the 700,037 square foot warehouse industrial building. Within that is 10,000 square feet of office and approximately 690,000 square feet of warehouse industrial space. Just regionally, as far as circulation is concerned, the trucks that would access this facility are coming on I-215. And they're coming, 60% are coming from the north, 40 from the south, and then they travel along Ethonac west, and then once they get to Byers, they would head south and enter the facility. As they're leaving, they could exit Wheat or Byers and then head back to along Ethonac to the 215. Our CEQA consultant prepared the traffic impact analysis for this project, and they looked at and based their recommendations and improvements on the cumulative plus project condition. As far as local circulation immediately around the project and within the project, there's going to be 2 driveways on Wheat and 3 on Byers. You can see the orange arrows indicate where the trucks would come in through, and then there's a truck court, a larger one on the north side, and a slightly smaller one there on the south side. So the orange is where the trucks come through. The blue arrow shows a driveway that only passenger cars would come into. So the movements of the trucks are separated from those passenger parking lots, so there's not that conflict. Also, there are, as far as parking is concerned, 380 passenger car stalls are required based on our parking code. However, they supplied 429 passenger vehicle stalls, and 69 truck stalls are, for a total of 498 stalls on site. As far as infrastructure improvements, so there would be improvements on Wheat, Byers, and Cuffle immediately surrounding the project site. On Wheat, that street would be built to our industrial collector standard, which is a 2-lane road, and a 2-lane paving would be supplied from that northwest corner all the way up to Ethanak Road on Wheat. At Ethanak Road, you'd have a right-in and right-out only, so left turns going northbound would be restricted. And then on Byers Road, you have a similar classification of road, an industrial collector. The project, similar to Wheat, would do their half-width plus 12 feet on the other side of the center line, and they would connect that to Ethanak Road as well. That would be a full movement intersection at that location. And they're proposed to put in a traffic signal there, so that's where the trucks would be primarily coming in from. And the westbound, heading westbound, left turn pocket, then heading south, that would be extended from, it's about 100 feet right now, they'd be extended to 350 feet to just provide more depth to that turning pocket. And then Cuffle Road, that's a general local road, so they're gonna do their half width plus the 12 on the other side of the center line and make those improvements. The project is also conditioned to participate in a RBBD, that's Road and Bridge Benefit District, and they will make payments into that, and essentially that's the fund that goes to fund improvements within this general area, within the Economic Development Corridor Northern Gateway area. They're also conditioned to make fair share payments and participation in that at multiple off-site intersections, and that includes, but it's not limited to, the I-215 Ethanak intersection. And then, as you can imagine, similar to other projects, they're going to be putting in utility improvements, including new water, recycled water, sewer, and storm drain lines. Next is the landscaping. This is an image of our conceptual landscape plans for this project. They're proposing 10.7% of the site to be landscaped. The requirement is 10%. And then along the edges, they're going to put in multiple rows of trees. Trees within the parking lot and adjacent to the building, and then they'll put in larger 36-inch box trees at all the driveway entrances and the main entries to the building as well. And then the truck court, too, was going to be screened. As you can see on kind of the 4 corners of the project, they provide more landscaping, more trees, and that's essentially to kind of set it back at the corners at those intersections and also to screen those truck courts from Byers and from Wheat. Here's an image of the architecture. We worked with the applicant, and they were able to update their elevations based on some suggestions from staff. They included some stained wood along those corners, changes in the color palette, variation in the roof plane, and also movement in the plane of the building, some awnings, and other enhancements for that elevation. Next is screening. So we paid particular attention to how this project is screened, particularly on both truck courts, but on the north side, you have residents, some existing residents to the north of the project. So here's an image on Cuffle Road, that's the north side of the project. And what they're proposing to do is a 14-foot screen wall, which is standard for these types of facilities. On the south side, the truck court sets much lower, below grade, compared to the property to the south, so the wall doesn't need to be 14 feet, 6 to 8 feet would be sufficient to screen since those trucks are lower. So you can see from the top cross section on the left-hand side, there's a berm. Cuffle is on the extreme left side. They're proposing a berm up to that 14-foot screen wall. So it won't actually appear 14 feet. It won't be quite as imposing. It will be a lesser height when you're viewing it from Cuffle Road because the trailers are set below that. So it fully shields on the project side, on the building side, it will be the 14 feet, but on the other side, it will appear less. Just give you a perspective of how far these dock doors are from the closest residential property line. They're approximately 466 feet from those bay dock doors to the property lines to the north. And then you can see here in the image at the far bottom, that's just a zoom in of their concept landscape plan. They're gonna have 2 to 3 rows of trees, kind of shielding or buffering that screen wall. The requirement, if you go into the Economic Development Corridor, Northern Gateway, the setback requirement is 25 feet. Here, they're showing they're gonna provide approximately 40 feet of setback, so an additional 15 feet of landscape setback. And then staff verified this project does conform to the industrial good neighbor policies that the city recently approved. As I mentioned before, there's a tentative parcel map included with this, 8 lots consolidated into 1 lot. And then as what was required of this project for environmental purposes was an EIR, it was an environmental impact report. The notice of preparation of that report went out to relevant agencies and neighbors within 300 feet back in May of 2022. And then a scoping meeting was conducted here at City Hall back in May 2022 as well. When the draft EIR was published, there was mitigation measures in there for the following areas shown here: air quality, bio, geology and soils, greenhouse gases, and hydro and water quality. But there was one of those areas still contained a significant and unavoidable impact, and that's GHG, greenhouse gases. And although there is mitigation in there, it can't bring the level of significance of that impact down to a less than significant level. Essentially, that significant and unavoidable is due to they're exceeding the 3,000 metric ton GHG threshold for their operational greenhouse gas emissions. And just to kind of give perspective on that, so 71% of their non-mitigated emissions and 79% of their mitigated emissions are all coming from non-construction related mobile sources. So the passenger cars, the trucks, that's where that GHG is coming from, which is something that the city doesn't necessarily have control of. That's more regulated by state and federal standards. So essentially almost after mitigation, almost 80% of those emissions are from those passenger cars and trucks. So as it's required for an EIR, if there is a significant and unavoidable impact, to make a statement of overriding consideration, and that's in the package, in the staff report package. And what that shows is that the benefits outweigh the environmental impacts, and they go into greater lengths or greater depths in the findings. But just to summarize, those benefits are that first, all feasible mitigation measures are imposed on the project. It's consistent with achieving the goals and objectives of the general plan. It's going to be an employment generating opportunity estimated at 860 jobs. And then they would attract businesses that can expedite delivery of essential goods. And then it'll increase property taxes. It'll require in the conditions the payment of DIF, TUMP fees, fair share fees, those RBBD fees, not included here, but also RBBD, investment in regional road and flood infrastructure as well. And then it'll develop an underutilized parcel of land, 8 parcels of land that are in the EDC Northern Gateway, so they're planned for industrial in any case. And then it's also going to attract quality tenants based on the site improvements, the architecture, the investment that they're making to be competitive with other approved and proposed regional projects. Regional facilities, that is. We received these 9 comments during the draft EIR's 45-day review period, which ran from March of this year to April of this year. You can see the names of those that commented, agencies mixed in with some also attorney firms. And then when this draft final EIR was published recently here on August 4th, we received additional comments from Blum, Collins, and Ho, which represent the Golden State Alliance and the City of Paris. Staff and our CEQA consultant have looked at those letters, particularly the one from Blum Collins attaches and references their previous comment letter on the draft EIR, which we respond to in the final EIR. They just reiterate that their concerns are still contained in that letter. They still have those same concerns. And then City of Paris, the majority of which those comments are already addressed in the draft EIR, and they're reiterating and stating that they still have those same concerns. Also, we did receive one letter of support from a local property owner, Michael and Sheila Rutledge. So at this time, this concludes, I'm sorry, I have to make my recommendation first. So the recommendation of staff is to adopt a resolution certifying the EIR, SCH number 2022-04000622, adopt the findings of fact and statement of overriding considerations, and adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the project, and adopt a resolution approving the tentative parcel map and plot plan, which is located north of Corsica Lane, south of Cuffle Road, east of Wheat, and west of Byers. And this concludes staff's presentation.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. Great job. Commissioners, do we have any questions for staff at this time? No questions for staff. I do have one question, and I don't know, Ryan, it's either a question for you or for the applicant, maybe. You stated that one of the reasons that we're recommending moving forward is the 860 jobs that would be created. Are those permanent jobs after it's open, or are those construction-related jobs?
That was supplied, a number supplied by the applicant, an estimate. So my understanding is those are operational numbers.
Okay, I'll follow up with the applicant then. Great, thank you. All right, so if no other questions for staff, then we will open the public hearing at this time at 6:17 p.m. Madam Clerk, was this hearing legally noticed?
Yes, it was.
And did we receive any correspondence other than what Mr. Fowler mentioned?
No, we did not.
Great, thank you. If the applicant's here, if they want to come up to the podium and have a discussion at this point.
And if the applicant does have a PowerPoint too, FIT.
Great.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Pam Steele with MIG. I'm here representing the Capstone Development Project. At this time, however, I would like to turn the time over to Alex Zikakis, who is the founder of Capstone Advisors, now celebrating its 28th year. And Alex will talk about who Capstone Advisors is.
Hi, good evening. Thank you very much for having us here tonight. I thought I'd start off and explain who our company is and our history in Riverside County and also specifically in Menifee. We've been, our company is based in San Diego, California. We're a private company. We do a variety of different real estate investments. We own shopping centers and industrial parks as one of our primary lines of business. And we also buy land and entitle it for other developers and also for ourselves. The company, as Pam said, the company's been in business for 28 years. It's a private company. I was a younger man when I started it. During that period of time, we have served as an equity investor for home builders, typically private home builders doing large-scale production home building projects. And through that line of business, we funded through our joint ventures just short of $3 billion worth of home building ventures, predominantly in California. And about close to $1 billion of that home building was done in Riverside County. We also buy for our own account, buy land and entitle it, and then we also, as I mentioned, we buy or develop shopping centers and industrial parks. And the reason we do both of those is because the shopping centers are an interesting asset class, and we enjoy the interaction with the community that we get through owning those and providing essential services and providing our tenants a nice work environment to serve the community. And then the industrial is sort of the other side of, as retail has trended to more and more being online. As we all know, these distribution buildings are also the sort of the yin and the yang to the shopping centers. So this piece of property, just give you an idea of how that we're not coming here late to the game. This piece of property that we're here to talk about tonight, we bought in 2010. I think at that time, Newport Road had one shopping center on it, and I really have to commend the city for the tremendously well done growth and development that's taken place through the city. It really is impressive on how this city has developed and matured over the years, and it's a wonderful testament to what the city and the staff and the planning commission and the city council have done over the years. When we bought this piece of land back in 2010, it had a residential map on it. It was designed and approved for a residential neighborhood of about 110 single-family homes. And in 2010, when we bought the land, there really wasn't any demand for any new housing. We were still working our way out of the 2008 period. But we did buy this property as thinking, okay, we'll come in and we'll provide housing to the city when that was the right time to start providing housing again. And then, as our discussions with the city, although we had an approved map, the city, the overlay on the industrial came into place. And as we talked more and more to the city, sort of monitoring what was going on, we quickly realized that, building that residential community was going to be sort of the fly in the ointment of the Northern Gateway. So we were willing to let that map expire and to put this property in a more consistent state with what the city wanted to achieve at that time, which is this large industrial development. So we've worked, I think, very nicely and very proactively with city staff. They've been a pleasure to work with, and we've been very much attentive to what the desire of the city is for this piece of property. At the time, we were the largest single owned the largest single piece of property in the Northern Gateway. So, this project was slated to be sort of, at the time, to be the sort of the spearhead of getting the industrial development going in the Northern Gateway. Our corporate mission, our mission statement, is to improve communities through quality real estate projects that positively impact people's lives. That's on our website, and that guides really what we do. And we really do want to be consistent with the desire of the community, and we want to provide exceptionally good real estate projects that are consistent with what the community's desires is, what the city's desire is. And I think we've designed really a wonderful, working with the city staff, we think we've designed a really wonderful, state-of-the-art, top-notch facility that has, many positive attributes: the jobs, the economic impact, the regional impact. And these distribution buildings, they help the city, they help with with fees and taxes and jobs. They also, frankly, though, they help the broader region. You know, there's a synergy that takes place from having these types of buildings clustered together. And I would go so far as to say they also help us on a national level and competitiveness with reshoring of jobs and manufacturing back into the United States, and putting together these zones where distribution works super efficiently is one of the things that, you know, helps drive down costs and bring inflation down and helps move our country forward. So we're very happy to be a part of that, and we look forward to answering any questions.
Chris, before, you have a question, but before, can I ask one question of the applicant? Do you approve of the conditions of approval?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great, thank you. Chris, question for the
So
applicant.
is this facility designed for strictly distribution, or is it designed for like assembly or packaging and distribution? The reason I say is the 800+ jobs is a pretty high number for a distribution facility. Most of them you might see maybe 50 people in them. So I'm wondering where the 800 is coming from.
Yeah, let me reach out on that number. That came from our. We'll provide the feedback on exactly how the 800. You want to do that, Mark?
Because there's multiple potential uses for these type of facilities. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mark Hayden, Capstone Advisors, project managing this project with our team of consultants. That number came as we were developing the EAR and the project description. There is not a specific tenant for the project. It is designed to be either a single tenant or multi-tenant. And as we had to answer that question about jobs, I believe there's a resource that you have for the type of use you have based on the square footage you have that then equates to the number of jobs.
You're saying you use this Menifee general plan based on square footage and employment? You use the Menifee general plan as far as developing the employment number?
I would have to rely on one of the consultants to be able to answer specifically where that number came from. It's been a number of months since we put all that
Okay,
together,
yeah,
so I
yeah.
apologize for not being so specific.
That might be direct and indirect, but we will get you that information.
But those
and
are-
source
Okay.
code that job
Okay.
number.
Yeah.
It just seems kind of high for a typical distribution. And I'm not saying I'm opposing it, I'm just saying that number seems kind of
Yeah,
out
what
there.
we did do-
Unless staff wants to comment on it.
What we did do in approaching this was we took worst-case scenario for the type of box that we had because we wanted to be able to analyze that, so anything that fell at the maximum or below would be okay.
Yeah.
So that might be why that number feels a little bit higher than you might have expected.
But the way this facility designed with, it's got doors on the east and west, right?
North and south.
North and south. It looks like a typical distribution facility, in one side, out the other, right? Am I
Yeah.
wrong on there, or
Yeah.
what would you
Yeah.
say?
No. And it's very
Yeah.
flexible because you can drive around the
Yeah,
site. If
yeah.
you divided the building in half, you could actually operate the north side separate from the south side. So it's got some good flexibility built into it.
Okay.
Joe, you have
Yes.
a question?
Yes. I would like to echo the other commissioner's question. I'm still puzzled with the future tenants. Is the facility going to be used for distribution or fulfillment? It's going to be a fulfillment center? Because each classification would require different hours of operation and labor force. So in order to reflect the high number of job opportunities, that might be referring to fulfillment center.
Yeah,
But then,
at this point, we don't know what the ultimate use, the ultimate tenant for the building will be. We've designed the building with maximum flexibility. But we do not have a tenant in tow. We don't know exactly who's going to occupy the building.
so in general, your hour of operation is going to be dependent on the tenant. It could be 24 hours a day, or it could be,
Yes, within the confines of the city codes, obviously, yes.
Another question I have is, directly north of your project, south of Etanak, there's a strip of land right now being used as residential. There are houses along the road, that portion of the road. I thought your company should have acquired the property to make the whole facility more compatible and more conforming to the neighborhood. Right now, you have a row of houses being next to.
Yeah, and I can speak to that. We have made multiple offers. We actually own some of those houses. We own actually one of those houses. We have made multiple offers for those offers, and I sort of like the good news, I think, is that our sense from having discussions and getting counters on a number of the houses is people fully appreciate that they have an appreciating asset in that house with this development coming to the area, and those houses are going to trade at a much higher price than they would have traditionally as single-family homes. Our intention, at one point the city had laid that out as a different designation, as a buffer to buffer this project from Etanak. We see that being developed probably for a collection of retail, service retail, small bay. So, and it's our sense that, that will be, that whole strip is going to be redeveloped, it would be my assumption from our discussions with a number of the homeowners. And it's sort of a question of when will that development take place, but I fully envision that will be fully developed into commercial development that will serve the people that are works in these buildings and also the surrounding community.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Driving along that Etanak road portion, on the north side, you see a very wide setback, and it's a residential area. On the south side, it's a row of houses and underdeveloped lots. So it's quite incompatible. That's a concern I have. I don't know what to do with it, but it's a major concern. I have the incompatibility of the partial in front and then the warehouse in the back. But looking at the north side of the road, it's a very wide setback with a sound wall. So it's very well protected. I was hoping that your facility would have a similar features. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions, Joe?
Commission-
Yes, go ahead. Go
My
ahead, Ty.
apologies, Chair. I just wanted to remind the commission that this is time for questions for the applicant, and you can make your comments after. Thank you.
Any more questions, Joe, for the applicant?
I just want to confirm that the intersection at the Etanak and Murrieta is going to be fully improved with street lights and signals. Is that correct?
There's a light at Murrieta, or is that Evans?
Which road, yeah? Which road, Joe?
At Murrieta.
What's the name of the road?
The light is at Evans.
Byers, yes, Byers.
Oh, right, Byers, there is a light there.
Okay.
There will be a light there. There isn't yet.
All right. Part of the commission.
Commissioner, if I can respond to your question, the project has been conditioned to provide a traffic signal at that location.
Okay, yes. And the street on the west side is going to be fully improved?
Half width.
Halfway, okay.
The half width will be improved, plus 12 feet.
Plus 12, right?
Yes. Thank you.
No more questions, Joe, for the applicant? We're good. All right.
Thank you.
Randy?
Thank you for that presentation.
I have more things to,
We have another
unless you have a
presentation.
question, go ahead,
Yeah, I have a question.
go ahead.
Okay, maybe I should have asked staff, but will truck traffic be allowed to travel south on Getz Road? So staff, could you maybe,
Commissioner, I think the applicant had like a two-part presentation, so it may be appropriate to allow the applicant to
Okay.
complete the entire presentation, then at that point, we can follow up with questions.
Thank you. I guess this advances forward. That was Alex's part. I missed the button. Just wanted to go over this with you quickly. First of all, we do want to thank city staff for all of the hard work. In fact, I have a gold medal for Ryan and one for Orlando and one for Cheryl. You'll have to give it to her. And then one for Hailey Ford, who was also very helpful in getting all of the conditions put together, and we want to award them gold medals for all of their good hard work. So I'll get those to you, Ryan, if you wouldn't mind passing them out. But as Ryan described, the Capstone project is a 700,037 square foot building with 10,000 square feet of office space. It's located just south of Ethonac Road, and our project team is here to answer any questions that you might have. Our architect, our engineer, and Lou Monville with Rain Cross Advisors. They're here to respond to any technical questions you might have, as well as Alex Zikakis and Mark Hayden with Capstone. We've been working with City Economic Development, Planning, and Engineering departments since early 2021 to engage our commitment to develop a high-quality industrial building pursuant to the city's desire for this area. The majority of the site, as you can see, is vacant, with a residential development up in the northeast corner and then residential uses to the north of Cuffle Road. And as Ryan mentioned, that truck court will be screened with a berm and landscaping and a 14-foot wall. On the Cuffle Road side, though, the wall will only be up to 8 feet. So it will screen that truck court. In the design of the building, the city standards are met or exceeded. Required parking on site is 389 parking spaces. There are actually 498 auto parking spaces with 245 trailer parking spaces for a total of 743 spaces. And then the height of the building is 45 feet 6 inches, well within the allowable 100 feet. The landscape coverage on the site is 10.7%, above the 10% required. And it has 434 trees in the landscape plan. Of those, 141 are in the parking lot, which exceeds the required 125. Roadway improvements along the site include Byers Road intersection improvements, including a traffic signal, a 350-foot turn lane from Ethonac to Byers, a northbound right turn and northbound left turn lane, and then on Wheat Street, the intersection improvements include a northbound right turn lane. The industrial collector is the designation for both Wheat and Byers, and those will be built with 2 travel lanes plus 12 feet, 11 feet of landscape parkway with a 6-foot sidewalk. And then the Cuffer is a general local street with 20 feet of pavement and 10 feet of landscape parkway with 6 feet of sidewalk. And then additional funding contributions in various locations as identified in the TIA. The Economic Development Corridor Northern Gateway, or Greatway, was zoned in the city's 2013 general plan. Also, it It was envisioned as a business park area with industrial uses to provide a buffer and transition between Paris to the north and residential uses in Menifee south of McLaughlin Road. Good neighbor policies were very important in the review and analysis of the project, including such things as limitation on truck driveways, truck access, 3-minute idling limitation, and then improved building design, setbacks, landscape buffers, screen walls, and environmental mitigation measures. Street improvements are going to be good for the project. Right now, those are dirt roads. They will be improved on the east, west, and north side of the property. And our project will develop roads on the east and west, as I mentioned, to the Industrial Parkway with 2 traffic lanes and 12 feet on the other side with curb, gutter, sidewalk, and landscaping, as well as underground utilities and streetlights per the city conditions of approval. Couple Road along the north side of our site will be developed with half-width road, 30 feet, curb, gutter, sidewalk, and landscaping. This is a view of the building from Byers Road. Please note that this is a sophisticated design that includes various materials and modern cool colors of white, grays, and simulated wood tiling, so it won't wear out, with blue tinted glazing. And there are metal canopies at the entrances and architectural detailing and articulation along all the building elevations. This is a nighttime view of the building from Wheat Street. It shows accent lighting and how the building is lit, and it stands out and accents the landscaping around it. In essence, the Capstone Industrial Project is a great example of cooperation between private development and the city to realize the long-term vision in the EDC-NG development area. The project meets or exceeds the city's codes and the good neighbor policies and shows how the city's goals and policies can be met. And the project fills a significant first step of the overall Northern Gateway Master Plan. We appreciate your time. And again, we're here. If you have additional questions, we're happy to respond to those.
Thank you, Pam. Randy, was your question answered by their presentation, or do you still?
No. I'm asking, let me ask staff. Will truck,
Do you want to go back to staff afterwards? And
whatever the order says, yeah, then
we can ask staff right now? All right, well, why don't you ask staff
make it
now?
difficult. Okay, will truck traffic be allowed to travel south on Getz Road?
Getz is not a designated truck route, so truck traffic will not be allowed to go south on Getz Road.
Thank you.
Good question.
So mine's kind of a minor operational question. What I see increasingly in these distribution centers with 18-wheelers is if you go in there, they have these internal security things. It's a big pole and it has a blue light and a red light flashing and has cameras on it. It's a good security feature they do. I'm just thinking those are typically placed at each corner of the parking stalls. And if you drive along any of these, you'll see them. My thought is if it could possibly be placed farther inside or something, because the residential owners on the north side there, even though you've got a wall that's blocking the trucks, it's going to be, usually they pop up about 10 feet above those walls. And it's rather irritating. I think if I lived in one of those houses, I'd be irritating to see this red and blue flashing light 24/7. Mm-hmm. So it's just a thought of where those are going to be placed near the residential end of the development.
That's good. All of our security is, I shouldn't say dictated, but given to us by the police department. So we will work with them in order to get that put in a better location.
Okay, just a thought.
Thank you, Chris. Joe, another question?
Yes. What kind of, are the access roads gated
The
For
road
security reason?
I'm sorry, into the truck court?
Into the facility, yeah, from the
Yeah, if we
street?
could go back to the PowerPoint presentation. If you see the truck courts to the north are gated, and then to the south, they're also gated. So access to those will be limited.
So all the accesses are gated?
Yes,
Okay. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Any other questions for the applicant? I have one last question. So I know, Alex, you mentioned that you've owned this property for quite a while now, and I know going through with staff has taken quite a while now too. If you were to get an approval, when do we think shovels will be hitting ground? When do we think this would be opening? How quickly are you anticipating moving forward with the actual building of it if you were to get approval?
So after we get approval, we need to go through and do all the.
Can you come up to the podium if you're going to answer? I didn't know if Pam was going to answer for you, but if you're going to answer,
Do you
come on.
want to answer?
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Apologize for that. So after we get approval, then we need to go through all of the fine civil engineering, and we need to do construction drawings with the architectural firm. I imagine that's going to take at least 18 months. And then we're going to have site work that we're going to have to do. And so, we're probably not putting up walls, I would imagine, for at least 2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But we do intend to move on it, keep the project moving along.
Because you're in the business of actually developing, right? Not just entitling. Right?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. If there are no other questions. Yes.
I have more questions. Do you have anticipated traffic increase or truck traffic increase due to your new facility? The reason I ask is on Ethernet Street, there are several large warehouses. So I would like to know the anticipated traffic increase for your facility and the cumulative traffic totals for the whole street.
For all of Ethernet, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, that was evaluated in the TIA prepared by Kimley Horn. So they did evaluate all of the traffic coming from the freeway along Ethernet.
I think
Does
staff
that
might be
respond
able
to your
to.
question?
Yeah, and we do have the CEQA consultant and our traffic consultant here available to answer questions when it comes to the traffic impacts. That might be more appropriate.
Yeah, Vice Chair, I think at this point it would be appropriate for our consultant to answer those questions.
Thank you. You get a break, Pam.
Hi, good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Trevor Briggs with Kimley Horn Associates and preparer of the traffic study for the proposed project. Yes, it is currently the site is a vacant site where there's no trips being generated. Therefore, the project would generate additional trips in this area. It was analyzed as part of the traffic study on how many trips would be generated. Just as a number, it was anticipated that in the traffic analysis, we assumed that the project would generate 4,508 trips on a daily basis. Passenger cars and trucks.
And that's just for this individual project, not the other projects
Correct.
anticipated on.
The concern I have is on this portion of Ethernet from Highway 215 to your facility. I'm always troubled with the two signal lights being very close together, right off Highway 215. And if we have heavy traffic, trucks going to be stopped everywhere because of the two street lights. I don't know how the situation can be resolved, but it's on during rush hours. I
Commissioner
see-
Long,
Yes.
my apologies. I just want to remind you this is time for questions, and you can make comments and share your thoughts after the close of the public hearing. So just specific questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions, commissioners? No? All right. Is the applicant done with their presentation at this point, or is there anything else you would like to speak to? You're done? Okay, thank you. Nope, I think we're good on questions for you. Thank you, I appreciate that. Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak on this item?
Yes, we have 7 requests to speak. First, I have John Fox, followed by Josh Gastelum.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. My name is John Fox, and I'm an attorney with the law firm of Alshire and Winder. We serve as legal counsel to the City of Paris, and I provide these comments on its behalf. Staff from the City of Paris has had an opportunity to review the staff report and attachments to it that was prepared for this agenda item. The City of Paris has submitted multiple comment letters regarding its concerns with the project, including a letter submitted on April 27th, 2024. Paris requested to receive future notices regarding the project, including notices of any public hearing. Notice of today's public hearing was sent by certified mail to Paris. However, it was not sent to the address that's contained on Paris's stationery. It was sent to a building across the street from that address that Paris owns, but does not monitor the mail. It's unclear as to why that occurred, because Menifee has sent notices to the correct address in the past. Notice of today's public hearing was sent certified mail. It was incorrectly addressed. Additionally, while Paris has also requested to receive electronic notices on June 11th, no such electronic notice was provided. As such, Paris staff has not provided adequate time to prepare comprehensive comments to the final EIR for this project, and was unfortunately delayed in providing written comments to Menifee. Further, many of the planning conditions of approval for the project provided on the city's website were cut off and therefore not legible, which did not provide Paris with adequate opportunity to provide comment on the conditions of approval. Mr. Fowler, the planner, provided this afternoon a complete copy via email, but that did not provide the city sufficient time to review all of the conditions of approval that were cut off. The city has submitted a new comment letter to you today, and hopefully you've received it, outlining the continued insufficiencies in the project's environmental analysis. The City of Paris respectfully requests that the new comment letter be placed in the record of proceedings for the project and the final environmental impact report. I would like to briefly highlight the city's concerns noted in today's comment letter. First, Paris has ongoing concerns regarding the project's transportation and traffic analysis. Menifee incorrectly repeatedly states that queuing is outside the scope of the final environmental impact report and not required to be analyzed under CEQA. It is well settled that a significant impact can occur if a project substantially increases hazards due to a geometric design feature such as intersection queuing. Commissioner Long pointed out the intersection of Case, Ethonac, and Barnett and Ethonac, where you have those two signals that are close together. The city has repeatedly stated to Menifee that adding these additional trips, which we have heard today of 4,000 additional trips per day going on to Ethonac, is going to create even more problems at that intersection, including terrible queuing and traffic safety issues. We have pointed that out on numerous projects. We are litigating that issue currently and believe that that has not been adequately addressed in the traffic impact analysis that's been prepared.
Thank you, Mr. Fox.
One final point.
I gave you several minutes after your 3 minutes were up already.
Okay, well, thank you.
Josh Gastelum, followed by Elijah Silva.
Yeah, good evening, Honorable Planning Commission Chair and fellow commissioners. My name is Joshua Gastelum, and I am here tonight to speak in support of the Cato project. I believe that we should appreciate and even honor the Planning Commission and you all as sworn servants for the challenging work that you do. It is not easy making decisions for a new city like Menifee, who was established on October 1st, 2008. All the decisions that you make are still having a significant and lasting impact on the nature and character of the city itself. So when a project that includes 700,037 square feet of employment opportunity for the city comes along, we have to see it not only with regards to the design of the building itself and whether or not it complies with the zoning regulations, but what the overall opportunity cost to our city is if we do not use the land for the proposed purposes. As outlined in the presentation we just heard from city staff, according to the most current available U.S. Census Bureau data, of our 100,000 plus citizens, only 9.5% of our city who is currently employed works in the fields of transportation, warehousing, and utilities. And if we broke that into thirds, then less than 3.2% of our city works in warehousing. That's about 3,200 people. And since every 600,000 square feet of warehouse typically yields about 400 jobs, then a 700,000 plus square foot warehouse would mean roughly 467 more jobs for our city's residents, not to mention the hundreds of construction jobs that would result from this project. So when we consider that we have 49,000 plus working age able-bodied members of the working force in Menifee, adding 460 jobs means increasing the entire working population in our city by nearly 1% with just a single project. It is for these reasons, specifically, as well as all of the working families generally, that the community asks you to approve this project. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Rexava.
Elijah Silva, followed by John Sisley.
Good evening, Honorable Planning Commissioners. My name is Elijah Silva, and I'm here to enthusiastically speak in support of the Cato project. From a recent February 21st, 2024 report on Patch.com entitled Inland Empire's White Hot Warehousing Sector Cools, and I quote, "Developers are fairly bullish about the future of the IE's warehousing sector." Ido Benzevi, Chief Executive of Highland Fairview, a developer working in a massive logistics center in Merino Valley, told the Times that the key drivers of growth remain intact in the region: e-commerce, global trade, and demand for larger, more efficient distribution centers. And when we talk about the role of Planning Commission with regards to approving warehouse development as it pertains to land use, what we are doing is elevating our perspectives about simple economic insights and understanding the driving forces that determine whether or not we are making the right decisions with our finite resources vis-a-vis land, and how we maximize its output while still retaining the character and general plan concepts we have put in place. Studies reveal that larger and more efficient distribution centers would be vital for maintaining economic viability in the region, and thus 700,000 square feet allows us to take advantage of one of the key features in ensuring that our city remains ahead of the curve regarding available warehouse space that actually attracts tenants. So tonight, we're asking as a community that you take into account the specific and undeniable needs of our community from a land use perspective and improves this project on the merits of its design and quality. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Silva.
John Sisley, followed by Zach Strosters.
Hi, my name is John Sisley. I represent all the union plumbers, pipe fitters, and refrigeration for San Bernardino and Riverside counties. I'm also a delegate to the Building Trades Commission, State of California, and a delegate to the Inland Empire Labor Council. There's this perception, especially in this area, that labor agreements are something that's forced on developers, and that's a self-serving thing. So all of our agreements have, among other community benefits, local hire caveats, right? So we hire local folks for that job. That money is spent right back in that local community, and it's just a circle that builds up the community. Every one of those folks standing over there is a family. They're a family. So when you support labor agreements, you're supporting your local families. And if it's self-serving, it's self-serving to the city of Menifee. I was speaking with one of the project managers before this, and he said to me, you know, I'm kind of new to this, and I came into this, and I thought, and he said that, he said, I thought this is kind of forced on us, and it's kind of self-serving. And he's like, you know, when I finally realized how this whole thing works, this is kind of cool. And I think all these folks sitting here are going to go home tonight and feel good about this development, right? I mean, we could build warehouses all day long and they don't seem to serve us, right? But we could also take advantage of them and make them serve us, right? And the fact that that's not a union job afterwards, well, it's not a union job yet. We're working very hard in the Inland Empire with the Warehouse Workers Resource Center, and we're organizing warehouses, and we're forcing people like Amazon to recognize their workers. So we get that opportunity if you build it, and we don't get it if you don't build it. So I urge you to please vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sicily.
Zach Strosters, followed by Jonathan Daly.
All right. Good evening. Zach Strosters, Care, California. I want to take a special minute to recognize Commissioner Joe Long. Every time I come to Menifee, I think, man, Joe is doing a great job of making sure that the community's needs are heard, extremely well detailed, thought out questions and comments. But I want to point out something, as I think a couple of the previous speakers brought up. We're in the sunset of industrial. And so it's incredibly essential that when private development comes with anything over 500,000 square feet, that unless we have outstanding reasons based on the merits or lack thereof of the project itself, that we approve. Because, you know, even with a 2-year, approval to shovel, we really have to evaluate what is the future, what does the future look like for your average entry-level worker in Menifee. And it's absolutely a land use issue because we're determining how valuable this land is based on whether or not we approve or don't approve tonight. So just by sheer decision, the land itself then comes into profitability based on whether or not we approve. So I want to also talk about the infrastructure improvements. As you saw from the pictures, it's a plot of land that's not doing anything. And as the developer mentioned, strip malls, that sort of, brick and mortar retail, people aren't really interested in that anymore, not only from an investment perspective, but overwhelmingly retail takes place online. I'm pretty sure we all buy a great deal of what we purchase at this stage online. So any other previously proposed use for this land, it's a blessing that it did not get developed, and it's a blessing that it's being considered for what it's being considered. And I also want to speak specifically to the architecture. This is a beautiful project, right? It's kind of like it's a big upsell to say warehouse or distribution is a beautiful project, but they have taken their time and their due diligence to really make this building attractive. Even with the blue glaze on the windows and even with, the faux wood panels, this is a project that you're not just driving by as a big concrete tilt-up box. This is something they've taken their time. It's attractive to tenants, it's attractive to the local community, and by and large, whenever a developer shows this level of care and intentionality with the design, it tends to flow likewise that the construction, the remaining community benefits, their relationships with the local community tends to have that same manner and that same characteristic. So for those that aren't aware, Care California does not support developers writ large or ad nauseum and say, okay, well, whatever tends to be good. We look at the project on a case-by-case basis. So we absolutely believe that this is a slam dunk. We think it's going to be a blessing to the community for generations to come, and we ask that you approve the project. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Mr. Schaffner.
Jonathan Daly, followed by Michael Rutledge.
Good evening. I'm Jonathan Daly. I'm a Marine Corps veteran and proud member of LIUNA, the labor's union. I'm here first and foremost in support of this project. along with my brothers over here. John was correct. There is a lot of families standing up here. I'm a husband and father. My son just turned 1, and we already work today. So coming out here is important for us to fight for these jobs for them. While we're here, our families are at home. My wife's at home. Unfortunately, hopefully missing me, but more importantly, she's spending probably money online shopping. And I hope she's not watching this. But we're here really to also support this developer. This developer's made the changes necessary for the city to implement their Northern Economic Development Corridor vision. So that's a mouthful. But to also provide highly skilled and trained union workforce, which is us. I mean, it's an honor to be a part of these projects. This one, you know, we want our workers, our members that are residents here to be able to work local so we can spend more time with our families. So on behalf of all of us, all of our members, our local members, which is huge. I mean, that alone, being able to work in your own backyard is a great privilege. Instead of having to commute to San Diego or Los Angeles, that gets old really fast, but we have to chase these jobs. So on behalf of all of us and our families, we hope you please support this project as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daly.
Michael Rutledge, followed by Armando Hernandez.
Good evening, Planning Commission, Commissioner, all the folks of Menifee. I've been a resident of Menifee since 2016, and I actually live in that corner that has the houses on it. I got a call in 2021 saying, you know, we want to develop that area for the city of Menifee to be an industrial project, and we want to turn it into a gateway so that we can start bringing business into Menifee. And at the time I was like, I don't want to move. You know, moving is not my thing. You know, I kind of wanted to stay there. And I talked to the commission and talked to the city about doing that. And I am totally behind the project. I think it was one of the best things I've done as far as working with the Capstone folks. I mean, I started talking to Capstone. They got in touch with me and said, hey, this is what we want to do. I got an idea of what their project is. I didn't know it was going to take, you know, from 2021 to 2024 to get that done. So I'm making a sacrifice. I live in Menifee. I'm a Menifee citizen, and I love it in Menifee. And so I love the community. I love the ability to be able to, like the guys just said, you know, I mean, not commute to San Diego. I commuted to San Diego since 2003 from this area. So that's a long commute, and I don't think anybody should have to do that. So I'm all about it. I think it's great. I think it brings money, and I think it will be good for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rutledge. I love hearing people say they love Menifee.
Armando Hernandez.
Hello, I'm Armando Hernandez. I own 2 properties on Cuffle Road, and my neighbor, you know, we own 3 right across. My question is, whenever they start building, you know, the road and all that, I have a dad that has cancer, and how's that going to affect, you know, when they do the construction, when they get through? I don't oppose your guys' project, you know. It's probably good for the city and stuff, but that's one of my concerns, you know. And also, I guess they said they're gonna, because we own the road, right? It's a private drive, and we've been having issues with it. I don't know if you guys own it, where there's a lot of drug activity going through there. I'm picking up needles all the time, you know. I don't know if you guys own it, if you could take care of that problem, you know.
Mr. Hernandez, we're not allowed to answer you from the dais right now, but I will direct you to speak to city staff afterwards, and they can
I've talked to
answer
Orlando before. I put up signs and stuff, but I mean, nobody's contacted us of purchasing the road, you know what I mean? Because we still own all that. So.
Thank you. That's well noted. Unfortunately, we can't answer you, but I would urge you to speak to city staff and to the applicant as well further for that. Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Any other speakers?
No, there are no other speakers.
Anybody feel that they got left out that they wanted to speak on this matter? But no, hearing none. We will now, actually, before we close the public hearing, can I ask staff one question? Mr. Fox brought up an issue of notice going to the wrong address. Can we speak to that at all? Or?
A couple of things. Obviously, we do have our standard notices that we send out to our surrounding agencies. I'm not particularly sure about the address that we send it to, but we did get an email from them a few months ago that they want to be specifically noticed and send an email to them. I have a copy of an email that we sent to them on July 31st at 8 a.m., where 2 of their staff members were notified of this project as they specifically requested. So we did notify them.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. All right, well, at this point then, we will close the public hearing at 7:10 p.m. Commissioners, comments, discussions, who wants to go first on this?
So so we can discuss it now for the concerns in regards to Cuffer and how that's done. My understanding, this project, either the city or the project owner will acquire right-of-way and build that street up to, I think it's 30 feet from center line. And I read that in the new comments here that the city will work to, I don't know what the wording in here is, to accommodate the existing properties and transition from the road to the property owners. So maybe the city can comment. The ultimate project will be definitely drivable, but during construction, how will that affect the property owners' ingress and egress? Because that's their road. They don't drive onto Ethernet. They come out on Cuffle. So can you address that, how that'll happen? Did I stun everyone, or what?
No,
are we
we're
doing?
waiting for Nick to
Okay.
come up to the podium. Haven't heard from Nick in a while. Good to see you.
Okay, there we go.
Vice Chair, Chair Thomas, Commissioner Thomas, the project will have to be phased in order for them to keep access to the facility. So the applicant will build typically the south half of the roadway, and then they're required to build, I believe, either +10 or +12 on Cuffle. So the dirt road that currently exists now does straddle both properties. There is a portion of dirt road that falls within their properties to the north of Centerline, but typically they would build half and half if they have to in order to keep access to those adjacent properties.
So the road number 1 will be realigned, obviously.
So the road Centerline will be dedicated by the project on the south half. I believe it's 30 feet, and they have to build 20 feet of roadway. So and then I'm not sure if it's 10 or 12 feet north of Centerline, and Centerline being their northern property, the applicant's northern property line. So there's 20 feet of pavement that would be built at one point, and maybe they'll come back and do the 10 feet. Or if there's enough residual dirt road that exists there, they'll work through those with the adjacent property owners.
Okay, so I'm reading in red this new amended one that's from Ryan. It says, Cuffle Road frontage improvements. Construct Cuffle Road as a 2-lane general 60-foot total right-of-way width. The improvement shall extend to the center line plus an additional 12 feet, like you said, including necessary off-site transitions to the existing pavement as approved by the Public Works Director. So in looking at that road, right now it does this. So you're going to straighten it out and rededicate a center line and then have a transition to the property owners? That's my main question.
So the new applicant, or the applicant, will dedicate the 30-foot half width. They will build 20 feet of the roadway on theirs, and then 12 feet.
They're going to build the southern part first.
Yeah,
and
then
do
12
the
feet. So, the road might meander.
It'll still meander? It won't be a straight shot?
It'll be a straight shot between Byers and Wheat when the project is complete. The center line will be currently where the applicant's northern property line is.
Okay, so to answer the concerns then, they'll build the southern portion, and during that, the property owners will still have access on the northern side to get in and out.
Yeah.
And then when they're building the northern part, will they still be able to drive in and out?
They'll work through phases. They might be able to build everything at once. It just depends on how much area is available north of the roadway. But the developer will work with those property owners to keep access at all times to their properties. And whether it's phased or not phased, how they construct it. They typically do, very close working relationships with those property owners.
And I think that's a legal requirement, because that's the only ingress and egress for those
Correct.
properties, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the transitions at the ends are just at the intersections of Byers and Wheat. So there might be some grading depending on what the profile of the roadways look like.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So as far as the project, I'm in favor of the project. It's consistent with zoning in the area. It looks like the project has made substantial investments to buffer between it and the residential portion. There's screening. I like that this, I'm not a big fan of warehouses, but it is right on Ethonac, which is the place for this. And if it's gonna be, that's the place it's gonna be, so I'm in favor of the project.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Randy? Joe?
Yes. If we look at the Ethernet road going east, there's another warehouse, 500,000 square feet plus on Murrieta. And then one block further, another large warehouse, Northern Gateway, 1,286,000 square feet. So we have, and actually there are other smaller warehouses on this side of Ethernet. And the problem I have is Ethernet is Collector Street, narrow. Right now it's kind of commercial and residential traffic. Now we're going to add another 4,000 trips each day for this facility. And if we add the other two warehouses, we're going to have 4,000 times 12,000 daily trips, in addition to all the problems we have. Another concern I have is we just approved the residential project, Cimarron Ridge, a little further south, but most likely the people living in this community is going to use local street, Ethernet, for shopping, for commuting. So we're going to be adding a lot of traffic. I do not disapprove of warehouses, but I'm very concerned about the Ethernet as a collector street. It's too narrow right now to accommodate all the anticipated streets.
Perhaps staff can talk to the ultimate width build out, because it's not, I believe it's not currently there. And especially with these residentials, as they develop, the right away will be taken from the front of them, and I believe it's gonna be 6 lane, but I don't know, correct me.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Commissioner Long, Commissioner Thomas is correct. Ethernac is classified as an expressway in both the City of Menifee's general plan and the City of Paris's general plan. So it is planned to be a 6-lane facility, 3 in each direction. The city, as part of this project and all the other projects, they are required to enter into a road and bridges benefit district, which they will pay certain fees per acre for the development of their facility, with the goal of being able to collect monies from each one of those developments to expand Ethernac Road to its ultimate width of 6 lanes. And as these come on, we will be watching the amount of traffic. Each project is required to do a traffic impact analysis, and as they start to trigger failures in the current level of service for those projects, they will be required to increase the capacity of the roadway, Ethonac Road. And so that's what the what we call RBBD, Road and Bridge Benefit District, will help offset those costs for the developers as they construct those improvements. Currently, there's a little bit of work that's being occurred between both the City of Menifee and the City of Paris. We are working together, create a global traffic study for this area. That global traffic study will indicate what type of improvements are needed throughout this whole Northern Gateway corridor. And we're working closely with Paris and their team to analyze the global impact study, global traffic study. So to answer your question in short, or long, I should say, we're going to, each project will be evaluated as they come online and what improvements are necessary to maintain a certain level of service throughout that corridor will be made as projects come online.
Another question about traffic. Right now, we don't know who the tenants will be, so we don't really know the hours of operations. As a city, can we restrict hours of operation due to the project being close to a number of residential communities?
I will defer that question to Orlando Hernandez.
Commissioner Long, a couple of items. Number one, traffic, as you know, it's required to be analyzed as part of the environmental process, right? So a traffic impact analysis was done. There are mitigations that are required that do not exceed any thresholds, right? So everything's been mitigated to a level that is acceptable. So this project will not generate enough traffic that will trigger any, in this case, a statement of overriding considerations because of potential traffic issues. That is not the case with this project. So in this case, the project meets or does not exceed any traffic thresholds. If a future tenant comes in, and again, the project has been analyzed worst case scenario as well, right? So when it comes to, and maybe I can ask Trevor as well to provide additional input, when we analyze traffic, because we don't know who the potential tenant is, it's analyzed at the worst case scenario, including the maximum traffic that could potentially be generated, as well as the maximum number of hours that this facility could be open. So it is analyzed at a worst case scenario, and therefore we capture the maximum potential impacts that could occur as a result of the project. But I'll let them elaborate a little bit more.
Hello again. Trevor Briggs with Kinley Horn Associates, prepared the traffic study. To the point that Orlando had brought up, there's various industrial uses with different rates, standard rates for different types of uses. The one that's most conservative is a high-Q fulfillment center sort facility, which is a significantly higher trip rate per square foot for any industrial use. So that was, because of the speculative nature of the project, that was what was analyzed as a worst case. So it would generate the most trips, therefore we would be able to anticipate what the recommended improvements would be for any type of industrial use that would come in from a traffic perspective.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Carrie Cano with Kimley Horn & Associates, one of the authors and project manager for the Environmental Impact Report. Commissioner Long had a question regarding hours of operation. It is true that as of right now, the building is speculative. We don't know the end user as of right now. So from an environmental perspective, we are required to analyze what we call worst case scenario. And so it is assumed in the environmental impact report that even though it may not be a 24-hour operation to provide a worst-case scenario analysis of environmental impacts. We did assume 24 hours of operation. And with Commissioner Long, I know one of your concerns was with respect to noise. So in analyzing a 24-hour operation, all noise-related impacts were determined to be less than significant with mitigation, assuming a 24-hour operation.
Thank you.
Any other comments or discussion? So I will say before we go to a vote, or Joe,
Yeah.
you have more?
I just want to make another comment. I'm not against warehouses. I'm for economic development. I'm hoping for more manufacturing facilities. Actually, warehouse is an indication of we importing stuff. We should do more manufacturing right here. That's what I'm hoping. But for this particular project, I'm very concerned about Ethernet Road. Not adequately handle all the traffic. If you look at the map on both sides of Ethernet with Highway 215, you're going to see so many warehouses on both sides. A lot of truck, and truck drive slow, so it's going to be a safety matter for local people driving to the nearby shopping center, the Winco, the Home Depot. That's where I used to go very often, and I'm always afraid of traffic on Ethernet from my personal perspective. So I'm very concerned about this additional, and I was hoping that the developer would get the whole block, get the frontage partials along Ethernet instead of getting below. And I was hoping that all 4 streets would have street lights, not just one, because normally for a long truck, it takes very wide radius to make a turn. So, yes, thank you.
I don't know, did we lose Nick already? If we just want to, if Nick can, there you are, Nick, you were hiding behind the podium. Can you speak to, do we foresee from the, if this project were approved and built, does Ethernet, with the requirements that they have to the improvements, does Ethernet fail?
Let me address Commissioner Long's comment first. Part of the truck turning radiuses, those will be reviewed in final engineering at the intersections to ensure there's adequate truck turning radiuses, let's say at Ethernet and Byers or Ethernet and Wheat. Those will be addressed during final engineering to see if additional width of pavement needs to be accommodated at the intersections. With this first project, no, the current capacity of Ethernet has sufficient. That's Trevor's study reviewed what capacity is available on Ethernet corridor. So with this project, it would suffice.
With this project, it would be sufficient, right? And then as other ones go on board, right, there would be triggering points where further improvements would be required to be made so that we don't lose a performance failure on Ethernet.
Correct.
I have a question in regards to that. So this whole Northern Gateway is zoned for commercial industrial. At build out, what is the trigger for the southbound off-ramp on the 215? Because right now it's 1 lane. To make it go 2 and maybe even have a truck lane or a dedicated 2 or 3 lanes, when will that trigger that off-ramp to have additional lanes?
Unfortunately, I couldn't tell you exactly off the top of my head what
Do you know if it's in the foreseeable future
Yeah, it's
at all?
in the foreseeable future. Some of the projects are contributing to a fair share maybe even some of the projects on the east side of the roadway are making improvements to ramp configurations. They're also making improvements to the bridge width, not the bridge width, but the striping over the interchange itself. So yeah, as we continue to move forward with additional projects, there is what we call a queuing length that they start to look at and see how much volume is stacking up at the intersection before it would trigger the need for a second lane, a second right turn, a second left turn, whatever it would need. So they take that into consideration when they're doing their traffic impact analysis.
I bring that up because the goal when we were doing the EDC, creating the general plan, we envisioned that area for these type of projects. Now, I personally don't want to see a bunch of warehouses up there. I'd rather see a mix of warehouse and then smaller businesses things, but either way, we're going to have traffic there. And I think that if you look at the general plan, it's designed eventually, Ethan Act, to handle that flow, and we want that flow there for jobs and for tax revenue and things like that. So.
Agree. Thank you, Chris. Ty?
Thank you so much, Vice Chair. I just wanted to remind the Commission that for pursuant to CEQA, the standard for traffic impacts is vehicle miles traveled, VMT, and no longer levels of service, or LOS. And so just as a reminder to, as you consider making findings relating to the quality and appropriateness of the environmental impact report and the other documentation in support of that you keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, if there's no other discussion on this, I will just put in my 2 cents quickly before that. Again, I also likewise I'm not a pro warehouse type person, but this is the area where we have designated that they would go. And it is something that works in that area. I am definitely in favor of the jobs that it would bring to the area, both operational and definitely the union work that will be done in order to construct it. So I'm very grateful and appreciative of that. I think it's a beautiful looking project. You guys worked well with city staff to create something that, again, is not just a gray shell of a building, but a beautiful building that will be nice. And it was good hearing from local residents there in the surrounding area that they're in favor of it. So with all that in consideration, I'm also in favor of this project. So can we move forward now? There are 2 resolutions for adoption. Can I get a motion and a second? Do I need to read out this whole thing, or do we just, since we're doing electronic?
You can say as recommended by staff.
As recommended by staff, yes. Thank you. And that first one passes 3-1. Likewise, that second one passes 3-1. Thank you and congratulations. All right, moving on to item number 10, Community Development Director. Well, we'll give it a few minutes for our friends in the unions to walk out. All right, Orlando, do we have any comments?
Just one comment, just a reminder to the commission and maybe anybody that's watching on TV as well. Tomorrow we're celebrating the Menifee night at the Storm Stadium. So I know there's a good number of employees that will be representing the city. So if you're not doing anything, if you're available and want to have some fun, tomorrow it's a good time to do that. So other than that, no more comments.
Thank you. I love minor league baseball, so it should be a fun time. All right, moving on to item number 11. Fellow commissioners, do we have anything to report on committee activities? No MCAC meetings, no? All right. Well, with that, item number 12, future agenda items. Do we have any requests for any future agenda items? No? All right. With that, we will adjourn the meeting at 7:34 p.m. Thank you, everybody.